we are halfway through the marathon. I hope everyone is enjoying these quick reviews. If there are any movies that you want a more in-depth review of, let me know. Let's hear that monster roar and dive right in. Sleepaway Camp.
I bet the rest of the boys will be interested in seeing you.
Sleepaway Camp is a pretty infamous movie because of the ending, and that's really it. Whenever this movie gets brought up, that's the only thing really worth talking about, but don't you worry, my friend. We're going to spoil the hell out of this one, regardless of how good or bad it is. By the way, it's not the best. It's not terrible, but it's nothing really, legendary. The movie starts off with a nice day at the lake, which obviously ends in a double murder thanks to some idiot kids driving a boat. The accident kills a dad and a child and leaves the other badly scarred. We jump forward to meet two kids who look like to be in their young teens, Ricky and Angela. They're being sent to summer camp, and right before they leave, their mother gives them a nice crazy lady goodbye. Cat ladies, am I right? Everyone arrives at camp and we get a good look at the staff. The head chef is a giant pedo and makes some pedo jokes. The other cooks laugh, and I get it. When someone jokes around you, you laugh, but this guy seems pretty serious about preying on some young girls. It's the first meal of the day and Angela is pretty much a mute who doesn't eat anything, so they take her to the kitchen to find something that she will like. She gets alone with the head chef who feels like he just won the fucking lottery and immediately takes her into the pantry. Lucky for her, her cousin comes in and interrupts the head chef who freaks out and threatens them both before tossing them out. Weird how no one heard any of that. Later on, he does get what's coming to him. He's prepping for the next meal and is boiling a comically sized large pot. Were these things really used back in the day for buffets, or is this just a prop for the movie? Anyways, he gets knocked over and the pot gets knocked over on him and he screams for what feels like an eternity.
You just die already?
He gets wheeled out of the place by an ambulance, and I shit you not, this is the convo the head camp counselor has with the doctor. Well, what's the prognosis? Well, he's badly burned all over. Wow, I can't believe nobody else could have figured that out without a medical degree. The head counselor bribes the witnesses to shut up about it just so the camp can stay open, and everyone goes on their merry way. The campers have a baseball game that is pretty boring, but them psyching each other out is pretty funny. Later that night, there's a school dance, and nobody is dancing with each other. Luckily, a fight breaks out to lighten up the mood, and the head counselor does absolutely nothing to stop it. The fight was over Angela the mute for being, a mute. However, Ricky's friend Paul gets Angela to talk. Ooh, we got a teen romance building here. Later that night, the older kids go skinny dipping, but none of the women join, so it's just a bunch of naked dudes in the lake. Okay, you guys do you. One of the kids who was a big asshole to Ricky and Angela before is out on a canoe with a girl, and it tips over as a prank. She swims off, and the kid swims underneath the canoe to, flip it back over, but he gets a special surprise from our killer, and the killer drowns him, instantly and effortlessly. Almost makes you ask if that guy actually even wanted to live. We get more and more scenes of kids and counselors picking on Angela for being a selective mute. An older bully foolishly goes to the bathroom. Doesn't he know this is a horror movie?
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Oh wait, that's not a horror movie rule. Doesn't matter, this guy is still gonna die. Our killer jams the door, goes outside, cuts a hole in the window behind the toilet, and drops a bee's nest into the bathroom stall. Keep in mind, this all happens in the middle of the day, and our killer still gets away with it. Huh, I wish I had that kind of luck. Something else? I got nothing. The guy gets stung to death. Let's do a quick search. Over 1,000? Yeah, okay, I guess this guy got stung to death. We see his body and the bees burrowed holes into his arms and face. I'm starting to question if the director or writer knew what bees are or what they do. After this guy's death, we find out that most of the campers went home early and that there are only 25 left. Angela has a weird flashback on walking in on her two dads in bed. Not really sure what this adds to the story. Hey, wait a minute. We know her dad and sibling died in the beginning, but why did she get adopted by the crazy lady? What about her dad's boyfriend? Why did he get sidelined in this story? Anyways, after she sees her dad and boyfriend in bed, it's now on Angela and her brother in bed. Don't worry, they aren't doing anything, but the bed starts to spin, and I know how this movie ends, and I know what they are trying to do, but even so, this flashback misses the mark, and it's pretty pointless. Later on, the campers enjoy a little capture the flag. I gotta say, this movie is probably the most accurate when it comes to their summer camp adaptation, and it's pretty boring. I want to see more over-the-top ridiculous camp stuff in my summer camp movies.
Do it to it, Lars!
It's my honor, Tony.
Don't get me wrong, summer camps are fun, just not that fun. Angela goes wandering around and finds Paul, her camp crush, making out with the camp bitch, Judy. I really hope she's 18 in this movie, but it gives off the impression that she's younger because she and Ricky had a thing last year, and Ricky is definitely a young teen, and Judy seems to have developed more than the others around her age, and the movie really doesn't hide it. And if she's the same age as Ricky, seeing her in this movie more and more, I feel like the feds are gonna come down here at any moment. Anyways, this obviously pisses Angela off, and I gotta add, I think she pulls off being a psycho really well. Takes one to know one. At this point in the movie, we suspect that Angela is the killer because she is the psycho mute, but the head camp counselor thinks Ricky is doing it. Later that night, the bitch counselor hits on the head counselor, who is like 50 years older than her. And she plans for a one-on-one evening with the guy that night.
But you two work together.
And even though all of that is happening, this movie is still better than the Friday the 13th movies. Fuck you, Friday. As she's getting ready for her evening, she gets stabbed through the shower wall dividers, which are just like thin sheets of plastic. Fast forward a bit, and a counselor drives some kids to a camping spot, but we see our killer just walk there. Okay. The head counselor notices that his date is late, so he goes looking for her in her cabin, and she spontaneously falls out of the shower. Okay. And the head counselor has the cheesiest self-pep talk ever uttered in film history and vows to stop him. To stop Ricky. Our killer has their eyes on Judy and goes into their cabin when she is alone and somehow stabs her with a curling iron or suffocates her with a pillow. It's really not clear exactly how Judy dies. It's pretty obvious here. But not here. The counselor that took the kids to the camping spot drove one of them back while the others were sleeping, and when he returns, he finds all of them murdered in their sleeping bags. Oh damn. Every kill so far has been people that picked on Angela until now. These kids didn't do anything to anyone. Not that it matters, I mean this is a slasher film, but for every other kill there was a motive. Until this last batch, which doubles the kill count in this movie. Ricky is walking around by himself and the head counselor leaps out of the bushes and beats him to death. He then runs away only to get ambushed by the real killer who shoots an arrow into his throat. I guess they borrowed that one from Friday the 13th. The counselors that found some of the dead kids call the cops, and when they arrive, they split off to gather everyone up. The cops find Ricky, and it turns out he's alive. Angela and Paul meet up at the beach, and she insists that they go skinny dipping. Later on, a pair of counselors go searching for the kids at the beach. They come across a naked Angela stroking the hair of Paul, who is lying in her lap. When they call out to her, Angela stands up, tosses Paul's severed head aside, and it's a boy! And the movie ends.
What? Oh, come on!
Seriously? It just cuts off right there? They see Angela in his schlong and go, oh my, she's a boy! And then the credits run? You know Paul's severed head is on the floor, right? Like he was murdered? And they don't say anything about it? I know this movie is famous for one of the most eerie endings in classic horror film history, and rightfully so, but it's kind of a bad idea of how to end your story. Imagine you are a camp counselor, and you go searching for kids with another counselor, because there is a killer on the loose. You get to the beach and see Angela and Paul, and you're like, oh no, Paul's dead, Angela's the killer! But the other guy's like, Angela's a boy? But you're like, Jim, that's Paul's severed head. Angela's got a penis? Overall, overall, this is an okay camp slasher movie. There are definitely better ones out there. It tells a decent story, it has some interesting kills, even though some are ridiculous. Angela plays a psycho really well, but it's dumb that the head counselor thought Ricky was the killer. Ricky and Angela look nothing alike. The hair is a dead giveaway. They should have had Angela look more like Ricky, or vice versa, or have them both be the killers, or have Angela be played by a boy, then dressed him up as a girl, because it's pretty obvious it was a body double at the end of the movie. It's an eerie scene, and the noise that Angela makes is creepy as fuck. It's an okay camp slasher horror movie with a really good ending at first blush, but at second blush, that ending is really kinda not very well thought out. The Djinn. The Djinn is a small and simple film, starring a very small cast, and is filmed in 2 locations telling a story that has been told 1,000 times. Is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not. Stories don't have to be complex with a large cast or 16 layers of social commentary. As long as it knows what kind of story it wants to be, shot well, acted well, and it gets you to really empathize or sympathize with the characters, you're gonna have a good time. And honestly, you've done a better job than most storytellers. And as for telling stories that people are familiar with, as long as you try to tell a good story while adding in a bit of creativity to it, there's no issues here.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
Okay, not all different ideas are good ones, but despite how many vampire movies have been made and how many of them have sucked, I still eagerly wait for new ones just at the slim chance we get another good one. The Djinn is a pretty solid movie, so I'll do minor spoilers. The movie starts off with our main character Dylan, who is a mute, moving into a new apartment with his dad, who is a late night radio host. They adjust not so smoothly to the new place, but they try to make the best of it. Dylan checks out the place and finds some stuff left behind by the previous tenant. Among those is a book, but not just any book, it's the Book of Shadows.
I'm not afraid of you!
It's weird how popular this book is considering it was created in the 20th century. The most famous one, and there have been a couple books of shadows made, but the most famous one was written by Gerald Gardner around the late 1940s. He was a famous Wiccan, and Wiccan is a modern pagan religion, so it's not like it has deep roots as the Grand Grimoire, but hey, that didn't hinder it from being in Charmed, The Craft, Blair Witch Project 2, The Book of Shadows, The Secret Circle, Nowhere Boys, and just before The Djinn, it was the main focus in the latest season of Are You Afraid of the Dark? You can check out my channel if you want to see my review on it. So Dylan skims through the book and finds a page on A Wish of Desire. You can probably guess what the mute kid wishes for.
No, I want an official red undercover knife to 200 jet rifle.
So after the dad leaves for the day, our guy Dylan immediately dives into the book, even though there's a clear as day warning at the end of the spell page. I mean, who the hell thinks twice about making a deal with the devil? I want my air rifle, damn it, and I don't care how many people I have to butcher. Sorry. What was I talking about? Alright, so Dylan performs the spell at first. It doesn't seem like much is happening, but it doesn't take long for Dylan to realize he's in way over his head, and now he has to survive the night. Can he? Is his wish worth all the trouble? Like I said, it's a pretty simple movie with a small cast and location. It has some pretty good scares and moments of desperation, some good quick-witted thinking, some good reveals, and a great ending. However, the small location at times seems to work against itself. There's several moments where Dylan has to book it, but he really shouldn't have anywhere else to go, or he shouldn't be getting this lucky. And then there's the villain. The Djinn is a mixed bag. Sometimes it's scary, and sometimes it seems incompetent at doing what it's doing. There's nothing wrong with the good guy one-upping the bad guy, but there's a fine line between your hero winning because of luck, skill, persuasion, or whatever, and your villain losing because he's a cartoon character completely incapable of winning. The Djinn is pretty good, and I'd recommend giving it a watch if you're a fan of simple, tight-knit stories. Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills is one of the most hype horror movies of the year, along with Lamb, Antlers, and Last Night in Soho. After the success of Halloween 2018, I think it's safe to say that most people were excited for a sequel, and I was one of them. And then Halloween Kills came out and, well...
Gotcha.
Okay, it's not that bad, but it's definitely a step down from Halloween 2018. I'll do this review in two parts because it's a new movie. I'll start with some minor spoilers in my initial recap and review, and then I'll do more serious spoilers later. If you want to skip those, I'll give you a little warning, and you can go to the time code below to skip to the next review. The movie starts off where the last one ended, and Cameron is walking around looking for Allison. Cameron was the boyfriend in the last movie, in case anyone forgot his name, because I sure as hell did. He comes across Deputy Hopkins. You all remember Hopkins, right? So Cameron runs over to the body and, oh shit, he survived? Then we get a flashback that essentially retcons parts of the original film.
What? Oh, come on!
Why the hell did they do this? They went through all of the trouble of rebooting this franchise with Halloween 2018 taking place after the first movie, but apparently couldn't go off of what was already established in the original or in the 2018, so they had to pull new motivations out of nowhere. Doing this makes it seem like they didn't have a solid plan when they did Halloween 2018. And half of the flashback is just talking about the first movie. Is this really necessary? I find it hard to believe that there are many people seeing this movie who aren't familiar with the Halloween franchise. It has more timelines than fucking X-Men. Anyways, we jump back to present day and we get introduced to a lot of characters who were in the original cast, or mostly the original cast of the first movie. Nice touch. Most of this movie talks about the legend of Michael Myers and how he affected the whole town 40 years ago and is still talked about today pretty regularly, even though he only killed like 3 people, which is an insanely low kill count for a slasher movie. We jump forward to the burning house and we see Michael escape and kill a couple firemen. And after reading the articles and seeing petitions to have the film edited because apparently killing firemen in a horror movie crosses a line, even though Michael's killed cops and a child in the last movie, and we actually saw it. We saw Michael kill a kid, which was pretty shocking. It's been a hot minute since they showed a kid get killed in a movie, but killing firemen is considered too much. Going off of all of that, I expected more. His swings didn't have the best form or enough oomph on them, and worst of all, we only see half of them die and the other half get killed off screen.
Whippy!
So the killings make the news and the reporter shows the pictures of the 2 escaped inmates on TV. One is obviously Michael Myers, the other one is not. Keep that in mind. So the survivors of the first movie rile up the town and go on a literal manhunt for Michael Myers. At the hospital, Laurie's family deals with everything that happened in the previous movie. The mom and the daughter find out that Michael survived the house fire, so the daughter joins in on the hunt against the mother's wishes while the mom stays by Laurie's bedside. The rest of the movie is a giant manhunt for Michael, and we the audience follow the manhunts and the town losing their damn minds, and Michael just bouncing from place to place killing mostly people who don't know how to use firearms. While all of this is happening, the movie's script is filled with atrocious dialogue like malignant level of cheese and over-the-top drama and repetition.
But evil dies tonight.
He's gonna die tonight. Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
Problem is that Malignant was trying to be cheesy, and Halloween Kills isn't. Most people are saying they love this movie or hate it. The violence is pretty good for the most part. The dialogue sucks half the time, and they try to give Michael a new motive or goal, which is pretty lackluster. Am I the only person who liked the idea of Laurie being Michael's younger sister? At least that's something from this mute killer, but this new motive? What the hell am I supposed to do with it? Wait until Halloween ends? I guess that's the only thing I really can do. Overall, I thought the movie was okay. Definitely think the 2018 movie was better. Now I'm going into major spoiler territory, so jump to the next review with the time code below if you want to skip. So some of the bullshit in this movie is unfortunately the violence. When the manhunt is broken off into groups, Michael kills a car full of people. There's a married couple and one of the OG characters. Michael jumps on top of the car and almost rips the head off of an OG woman. So the wife, who has a gun, gets out of the car and runs away. And Michael hops down from the roof, kills the OG, kills the husband, and then the wife comes back, guns blazing, and this happens. When I first saw this, I laughed my ass off. This is so fucking stupid, and such a forced way to portray this scene. So the wife just bolted after Michael almost kills someone from the roof? Keep in mind, she knows her husband doesn't have a gun, and she actually says she has gun experience before. What really would have happened is she would have gotten out of the car, taken a few steps back, and shot the shit out of Michael with the hand cannon of a Desert Eagle she's wielding. But no, it's early in the movie, so Michael has to seem not as tough as he is in the ending, and he has to survive this scene, so she just pisses off for the right amount of time for the other people in the car to die, and then comes back to get killed in a comical way. Michael does get a bit more decorative with his kills, which is fun, but it could always be more. One thing that annoyed the hell out of me was how much they brought up the legend of Michael Myers. This new timeline takes place right after the first movie, which Michael only killed 3 people, and it was 40 years ago. You'd think people would move on from that. That's like half a lifetime ago. With Laurie Strode, it makes more sense that she would obsess over him, but for half of the entire town, let's name some other serial killers and see how Michael stacks up. Charles Manson killed 2 people himself, but 7 by his followers. The Zodiac Killer, 5. The Co-Ed Killer, 10. BTK, 10. The Golden State Killer, 13. The Night Stalker, 13. Jeffrey Dahmer, 17. Ted Bundy, 30. John Wayne Gacy, 33. The Green River Killer, 48. And none of these monsters had supernatural powers, and it is confirmed in this movie that Michael has powers. And people don't talk about these killers half as much as the people in this film talk about Michael. Let's talk about the hospital scene. It would have been a decent mob mentality moment if the other inmate actually looked like Michael. Earlier that night, they showed pictures of the 2 who escaped, even though one clearly looks like a serial killer, and the other, not so much. Also, how would they know whose pictures to show and not state their individual names? Like, how could they not know their names if they know exactly who escaped and were able to find their pictures? Michael also stands at least a foot taller than this guy. He also doesn't run away, or even run for that matter. 2 big giveaways that this guy isn't him. If anything, he looks more like Dr. Loomis from the first movie. I actually thought it was him until I realized that that actor died some time ago. Big John and Little John were a very dumb duo in this movie, and the backlash after the movie was released on their deaths was ridiculous. Michael kills a gay couple, ergo, that makes him a homophobe. That makes about as much sense as Netflix saying that by their statistics, that insert movie title is so scary that viewers didn't even finish it. Or people turned it off because they were really bored. I can think of plenty of boring ass movies that people would stop watching halfway through.
I'm so bored! Somebody help me!
You know, Michael does kill several black people in this movie. Does that make him a racist?
Little idiots! Idiots!
Finally, let's talk about the ending. Not the obvious thing to poke fun at. But let's be real here. Michael getting the shit kicked out of him at first was decent, but him bouncing back and killing the whole mob was all artsy and it jumped from kill to kill, and it was just wasn't epic. I want to see him flex some skill or some brute strength or something. By jumping from throat slice to throat slice takes all the oomph out of an epic fight. And the whole time he's racking up this kill count, we get a speech from Laurie Strode stating that every kill makes him transcend into something more than human. And also stating that you can't just kill him with brute force. So with those 2 nuggets of info, how are they going to kill him in the next film? It worries me that they're going to have to come up with some sort of bullshit way to defeat him. I mean, how else are they going to do it if not by brute force? So yeah, not a horrible movie, but there's plenty to criticize. Re-Animator. Re-Animator is another classic that gets mentioned a lot in the horror community, and I'm glad it made it to the list this year. What an absolute bonkers 80s movie. It's nowhere near the level of quality of other movies from its time like The Thing, Alien, the first couple Nightmare on Elm Street movies, But is it fun? Yeah, it has its moments, and I can definitely see why it would make the 80s horror movie Hall of Fame. Lots of practical effects, violence, some over-the-top drama, and of course, some ridiculous nude scenes, and I'll get to those later. It's a pretty good old movie, so I'll be spoiling it. The movie starts off in Switzerland where our Re-Animator tries and fails to bring a doctor back to life. He gave his subject too high of a dosage, which made the guy's, I think, brain and eyeballs explode. Ha! I love it. We then jump to a hospital in Massachusetts where an eager medical student, Dan Kane, tries and fails to resuscitate a patient. I wonder who he's gonna be friends with. After Kane brings the body to the morgue, he is surprised by the dean of the medical school, who introduces Kane to Herbert West, the Re-Animator. While that's going on in the same room, Dr. Carl Hill, who is the hospital's brain expert, is doing a lobotomy, which catches the attention of West. The dean introduces West to Dr. Hill, and West is very cordial, polite, respectful. Nah, he calls Dr. Hill a plagiarist and that his theories are outdated. And judging by Dr. Hill's reaction, yeah, this guy's a hack. Later we get a cute scene with Kane and his girlfriend fooling around. We don't see anything yet. So his girlfriend is the dean's daughter, and as she's about to leave, Kane complains about needing a roommate. Oh, and who just so happens to walk through the door and is in need of a room, you might ask? Herbert West.
No way.
So the next day in class, Dr. Hill is giving a lesson or demonstration on cutting out the brain, which pisses West off so much that he breaks a pencil, only to pull out another and breaks that too. So one class session and 47 pencils later, West lays into Dr. Hill, calling him a hack. Later that evening, Dr. Hill and the dean have a dinner, and Dr. Hill is planting a lot of doubt into the dean's head, and it's weird and over the top, and it seems like a serious dip in acting quality in this movie. Oh, and he also plants the idea of getting with the dean's daughter, even though he's like 30 years older than her. Some of the writers from Sleepaway Camp must have worked on this film. Back at Kane's place, him and the dean's daughter Megan notice that the cat is missing. They snoop around in West's room and find the cat's dead in his mini fridge. When West gets back, they accuse him of killing the cat. West says it was an accident, and he plays it off pretty well, but you have to be better at human interaction in order to lie well, and West is a newbie in that field, but he threatens to expose their relationship to the school, which would screw over any chance Kane would have for even the potential of favoritism, or everyone would think he's already getting it. So they drop the dead cat thing and try to find a new way to get rid of West. Later that night, Kane hears some strange noises coming from the basement, so he goes downstairs to check it out, only to be greeted with a face full of So Kane freaks out that his cat is alive, and it went all Pet Cemetery on him. Kane believes West faked the cat's death before, and it was just brought back now and just freaking out. West ain't having that, so he brings the cat back alive just to prove to Kane of what he and his serum can do. But when Kane killed the cat, he broke its spine, and West says that it can't be fixed. But he still doses up the cat, and boom, it's alive again. It's important to point out that the serum isn't a cure-all kind of concoction. It deals specifically with the brain, and being able to essentially turn it back on. Kane goes to tell the dean about the experiment, but the dean denies it all. He expels West from the school and threatens to take Kane's school loan away. Later that day, Kane sneaks West into the morgue to bring back a human that the hospital pronounced dead, so they dose up the best corpse that they could find, and the thing goes all Pet Cemetery on them, and the dean barges into the room and gets killed by the specimen. Then Kane and West kill it. West jumps at the opportunity to bring the dean back because of how freshly dead he is. He doses him up, and the dean is still violent, but he calms down when his daughter bursts into the room and tries to talk to him. The dean recognizes his daughter's voice. This proves that he has regained some of his consciousness. Dr. Hill puts the dean in a straitjacket and gets Megan to sign a release so that he can do exploratory surgery on the dean. Megan goes to Kane and Kane tells her everything. Meanwhile, Dr. Hill goes to West and knows what West did to the dean. Dr. Hill does some sort of weird mind trick to West, which he has done at least 3 times in this movie, and it seems like a vampire mind trick thing, and he plans to take credit for West's work. But it doesn't work for very long, and when Dr. Hill turns his back against West, West knocks him down with a shovel and cuts his head off with it. Awesome. West is deep into the experimentation part of his work, and he juices up Hill's severed head and torso. He successfully brings both back, but Hill can still control his body and uses it to knock West out. So many questions here. Why is Hill special? Why can he remain in control and others couldn't? How can he control his severed body? Is he human or not? Does he have powers? You'll ask these questions even more later on. So West wakes up and all of his shit is gone. So is Dr. Hill. Kane comes in and West tells him everything. He also sprinkles a little lie saying that Dr. Hill was going to get rid of him as well after stealing West's work. But Kane does tell West that Dr. Hill lobotomized the Dean so he could never fully recover, if it was even possible. So there was probably some truth to what West told Kane, even if he didn't know it for sure. We see Dr. Hill carry around his head, and it's weird, goofy, and as illogical as you'd think. There's even a scene where Dr. Hill puts a mannequin head on top of his body to sneak around while his head is in a zipped up bowling bag. How the hell is he gonna know where to direct his body if he can't see? He also tells the Dean to kidnap his daughter and bring her to the hospital.
What? Oh, come on!
How is this lobotomized, reanimated nutjob supposed to do that? But sure enough, he does, despite all odds. And the next series of scenes is... okay. Okay, so the severed head of Dr. Hill starts macking on Megan, who is tied up and lying naked on the table. And these scenes are just... I can't find the words to describe how ridiculous these scenes are. All I can do is imagine the conversation between the director and this actress after she accepted the role. Director: okay, so we will have a lovemaking scene between you and your boyfriend, but we won't show anything. Actress: oh yeah, that's totally fine. Great. Okay, so for the grand finale, we are going to have the mad Dr. Hill, who is obsessed with you, tie you up to a table and you'll be fully nude. Well, I guess that's not that bad. Awesome. And then we are going to have his severed head tongue your ear. Okay. And then he's going to get a mouthful of your boob. And then he's going to munch on your box. Okay, what the actual? Oh, too much? Okay, he will attempt to go down on you before he gets interrupted. What the hell am I watching? So West and Kane arrive and Dr. Hill unleashes his army of reanimated, lobotomized zombies, I guess? That apparently he can control. Okay, I know that Dr. Hill has mentioned the part of the brain that controls will before in this movie, but they are saying that just because Dr. Hill burned a hole into their heads, that means he can mind control him. He must have psychic powers, because if not, none of this makes sense. So Megan is able to get the Dean to fight on their side, which helps them escape, but West dies doing one last experiment. Maybe? I haven't seen the sequels yet. So Kane and Megan leave, but Megan gets choked to death by one of Dr. Hill's minions, and then Kane kills it. Kane tries to resuscitate her, but fails, and then he uses the serum to bring her back. And then the movie ends. Ha! Ain't no one learning a lesson in this movie. So how was it? Overall, it's pretty ridiculous. The finale goes from 0 to 100 really fast. There are a lot of unanswered questions. Who or what is Dr. Hill really? What is the serum that West uses? He mentions before that it's not magical, so where did he find it? Or how did he make it? At first it seems like a solution that just reactivates the brain, which I can get behind, but it bringing back Dr. Hill's headless body makes no sense, and even less with the severed head. The open neck wound never gets healed, so all the blood keeping the brain going would just leak out in seconds. But apparently Dr. Hill can walk several blocks to get to the hospital before throwing his head in a tray and pouring some blood into it. Also, West's death in the end makes no sense. He says he has one final theory before overdosing Dr. Hill's body. Like, what's the theory? We know the Swedish doctor died in the beginning of the movie because of the overdose. What is West trying to do? Keep in mind, he does this while the Dean is crushing Dr. Hill's head, so is he just trying to help the Dean out? That can't be it, because West waits around to see its results, which ends up being his demise instead of just overdosing it and bolting. It's a pretty good movie, but I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a great 80s horror film. Till Death.
It's time to wake up.
Till Death is a new Netflix thriller starring Megan Fox being married to a psycho narcissist that has the perfect anniversary planned for his beloved wife. This was an okay movie, but could have easily been much more. I'll do minor spoilers on this one, but it's a pretty simple movie, so I'll be quick. The movie starts off with an affair and Megan Fox is the cheater. Not very surprising, she's always been a monster. She plans to end the affair out of guilt the night before her anniversary with her husband. How considerate! So she meets up with her husband at a fancy restaurant, and you can just feel the tension and depression between these two, but the husband takes her to a romantic getaway at a cabin at a lake. They share a romantic night together, and when she wakes up, she notices she's handcuffed to her husband. Megan starts to freak out, but the fun has just begun. Her husband then blows his brains out. Now she has to try to survive and get out of this terrible situation, but it's not so easy. Her husband has several tricks up his sleeve. Can she escape this frozen hellhole? Can she survive what her husband has in store for her? So the movie starts off interesting enough when Megan goes into survival mode and tries to escape, and we see just how well thought out the husband planned everything. But later on, the husband's plan is less intriguing and manipulative than Jigsaw or V for Vendetta, and more predictable and less interesting. The movie would have been better if it was just Megan Fox handcuffed to a corpse and she has to survive a house of horrors and traps and puzzles and all that kind of stuff. However, the problem with that is Megan Fox herself. In this movie, there are other characters that take up the screen time, which is good because Megan Fox doesn't really command the screen like other more charismatic characters in similar movies, like Oxygen, Buried, or Gerald's Game. If we went with my alternative idea, it would have been Megan Fox for 95% of the movie, which wouldn't really work, at least for her or her character in this movie. She's not very charismatic or even that likable. She struggles through a lot in this film and does have some moments of creative thinking, but I really felt to myself that I really wanted for her to survive the trials that laid ahead. It's not a terrible movie, just throw in a different actress and a better plot and boom, you'd have a better story. Thanks for watching, and stay spooky until the next 5.